Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I'm always overjoyed to return to Quo, and this is sort of a special episode. I'm going to go over a rather short channeling on an amazingly fascinating topic. This is something I actually discussed in my interview with Jim McCarty. Now, as I always say, if you're new to the podcast and you don't know what the Law of One or Quo or Jim McCarty is, check out my previous episodes. Brief summary, Quo is a group of higher density beings that are channeled through a group called LL Research that answer questions of a spiritual nature. And they're originally derived from the Law of One, which is from the raw material, a very complicated set of channelings that we have discussed on the podcast. Jim McCarty was the scribe for the Law of One sessions, meaning he wrote down the stuff that they channeled, and I interviewed him. And one of the fascinating aspects of the Law of One, they said that when you move through densities, we're in third density now, the higher density, the fourth, fifth, sixth densities. In the sixth density, these beings of light, he stated that the fusion of two entities or more in sixth density, love, produces what we see as the rays of sun that come to planet Earth. This comes from a question and answer session in the Law of One material, in which they discuss the idea that essentially advanced sixth density beings are living on the sun, and the sun's rays are often a result of essentially sex between higher light beings on the sun. I've always thought about this. Every time you see light rays on a picture or something, you wonder, is that coming from that, an explosion on the sun? So they actually asked Quo about this, and their answer is very interesting and enlightening, and they also included the passages from the Law of One. So we go to a channeling that was given on October 17th, 1993. The question this afternoon comes from session number 41, book 2 of the Law of One. We would simply like Quo to comment on any or all portions of this question. Questioner: in trying to build an understanding from the start, you might say starting with intelligent infinity and getting to our present condition of being, I think that I should go back and investigate our sun, since it is the sublogos that creates all that we experience in this particular planetary system. Will you give me a description of our sun? Ra says, I am Ra. This is a query which is not easily answered in your language, for the sun has various aspects in relation to intelligent infinity, to intelligent energy, and to each density of each planet, as you call these spheres. Moreover, these differences extend into the metaphysical or time-space part of your creation. In relationship to intelligent infinity, the sun body is, equally with all parts of the infinite creation, part of that infinity. In relation to the potentiated intelligent infinity, which makes use of intelligent energy, it is the offspring, shall we say, of the logos for a much larger number of sublogi. The relationship is hierarchical in that the sublogos uses the intelligent energy in ways set forth by the logos and uses its free will to co-create the, shall we say, full nuances of your densities as you experience them. In relationship to the densities, the sun body may, physically as you would say, be seen to be a large body of gaseous elements undergoing the processes of fusion and radiating heat and light. Metaphysically, the sun achieves a meaning to fourth through seventh density according to the growing abilities of entities in these densities to grasp the living creation and co-entity or other self-nature of this sun body. Thus, by the sixth density, the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time-space, and may even be partially created from moment to moment by the processes of sixth density entities in their evolution. Question: in your last statement, did you mean that the sixth density entities are actually creating manifestations of the sun in their density? Could you explain what you meant by that? Ra says, I am Ra. In this density, some entities whose means of reproduction is fusion may choose to perform this portion of experience as part of the beingness of the sun body. Thus, you may think of portions of the light that you receive as offspring of the generative expression of sixth density love. Question: then could you say that sixth density entities are using that mechanism to be more closely co-creators with the infinite creator? I am Ra. This is precisely correct, as seen in the latter portions of sixth density, seeking the experiences of the gateway density. Carla channeling. We are those of Quo. Greetings in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. The pause which you have experienced before this contact has been somewhat more lengthy than our usual time of adjustment with this instrument. However, this instrument was also picking up other signals, and there was time needed, as you would say, for straightening out the traffic jam. We always try to mention these bits of detail concerning the mechanics of the channeling process in order that those who study it may become more nearly able to use the practices more and more skillfully. It is always well to take any time needed by a channel in order for that channel to assure itself that it does indeed have the desired contact. We cannot overemphasize the centrality of this concern to the practice of channeling. You wish to investigate further into the sun body, which we shall call Sun, as that is your appellation for it. And indeed, you may well find this sun body to be provocative and interesting, for it is quite obviously and literally the light of the world. All that each of you thinks of as a life within the earth plane thrives because of the sun, its radiant warmth, and the energies which it and its co-entities in creation have upon the world, as seen, as you would say, and indeed upon each of you. Let us move to the beginning, where there is only intelligent energy created by free will, which creates unpotentiated love, which in turn, it being the first articulation of singular characteristic, out of this singular characteristic creates one thing, the photon. This photon is timeless and spaceless. It is unity and infinity. It does not have number. It is solid. That is, in its estate as light, limitless, it is solid. All that there is dwells in this version of the one original thought. And at the level of this one great original thought, there is eternally the endless creation of light, or what you call the photon. We refrain from calling the first emanation of the sun body light, for we wish to distinguish between the timeless, spaceless light, which is limitless, and a child of this light, which is radiation of the light as you experience it upon your level of existence, and as others experience it in theirs. At the photon level, light is all there is. This limitless light is the background created by love before any articulated creation made from light. This light everlasting shall be as always infinitely creating in an infinite and eternal present. At this level, light is a thought. That is, it is a perfect creation of a thought. It does not contain error, but is a creature of utter love containing the infinite intelligence without distortion. Within the context of third density lessons of love, this plane of light has little substance in reference to questions of moving from third to fourth density, learning the lessons of love. It is to the light which interests your peoples as an ideal is to a philosopher. Yet this is the environment, shall we say, within which the infinite creator has being. This is for that mystery which is the creator. The way entities seeking to love the one creator may visualize moving into the highest of all tabernacles, pure, limitless light. There is this place where light is still, for it completely fills all that there is. At this zero time/space intersection, there is the seed of all infinity and all eternity. Once free will begins to operate, and that great logos begins its creation, the interest of seekers in investigating light often moves toward that radiation from the sun. Each already realizes that we have said before that the light which seems to radiate from your sun body is that which has built all that you see. All things are made of light. This instrument, the microphone, which this instrument has about its neck, the clothes, the furniture, the earth, the sky, these things are all created of light. The characteristic of light to your plane is such that entities cannot see or often imagine how literally all things are made of light. This is in part due to the fact that the functions of light operating within your density cause the formations to lack obvious resemblance to that which is light. The operation of light and building structures is such that light appears as magnetism or electromagnetism or fields. We apologize for this instrument's lack of proper vocabulary. Thus, when the intelligent light creates, it does indeed use light. However, this is seen as form, color, shading, size, characteristics, measurable, visible, and so forth. The objects are seen that they are in the way they are, that is, that they have the shape and form they have, which is known to be the result of each object having a field of energy that somehow keeps all together. In investigating questions concerning the use of alternative ways of healing, this point is well to remember. A characteristic of light, which is indicative of the range of its metaphysical characteristics, is that light is inherently intelligent, and therefore any amount of infinite light can grasp, as though it were an entity, the heartfelt communications made to it. This ranges from something as simple as the sun body being aware when the radiation of the sun touches your skin, and you praise the light and the love of the Infinite One. You have communicated with the Infinite Creator. Entities who have followed sun-worshipping practices have been known among your peoples for all of your history. The reason being that there is indeed that opportunity to converse with this, shall we say, as this instrument does, Lord of Light. And these conversations uplift the entity within. Again, when an entity goes into meditation and calls for the limitless light and then remains in that light, basking in its glow, that entity is tabernacling with the infinite creator. At this time, we would have this entity open the meeting to questions. Questioner: could you tell me how the sixth density reproductive function of creating light by what we see as fusion is accomplished, and is there more there than what we see? We are those of Quo. That which you see as radiation from the sun is an offspring of the mating by fusion practiced by some of sixth density entities. You would more likely find accuracy in grasping that such who choose to become a portion of the sun body to create offspring move to the center of that celestial body. The immediate offspring of this mating is more a quality than a thing, more a tiny being than a measurable substance. This tiny being, created as the Logos itself has created, is a special class, shall we say, of light. Not all rays from the sun are the children of sixth density love. However, that aspect of light which is healing is aided greatly by the working of the immediate offspring of those who choose to create their progeny by fusion within the sun. This is a sacrifice for the sixth density entities, in that they are not able then to enjoy the company and the living, shall we say, with their offspring. However, the offspring have the advantage of being only halfway, shall we say, aware of free will. Thus, during their tenure within the sun body, they may intelligently choose to drench the radiation in general, which comes from the sun, to those upon your sphere, so that the maximum amount of healing energy moves into that sphere and into those locations where in a prayer or pain has announced the existence of need for healing. Is there another query, my brother? The rays of the sun provide light for the earth, which causes photosynthesis to happen in our second density plants. It causes the cycle of rain and evaporation that continues to bring life. I'm wondering if there are some of the reasons that human beings from thousands of years in the past have worshipped the sun, or have they also been aware of the metaphysical qualities of the sun as the reason for their worship? We are those of quo. In most cases, there is the sun worship because of the reasons you placed forth. In a few instances, some metaphysical material concerning the sun has been known in much distorted form, such as during the ancient Egyptian civilizations. Question. I was wondering, quo, when our third density fusion is achieved by scientists who manipulate matter to achieve it, is there a sixth density entity involved in it? Can you comment on this phenomenon? I'm quo, my brother. As you rest upon your seat within this domicile, you are immediately touching all densities. Every possibility lies directly at the 0 point of your present moment. It is difficult to express in your language the fullness of creation. In a man-made fusion power plant, there would be no more sixth density entities than if that power plant were not there. However, there would be other beings, which also are children of light, sometimes called elementals, which enliven and particularize light and act as ambassadors, shall we say, to those upon whom light falls. Question. So what you're saying, if I grasp it in my thinking, is that thermonuclear fusion does not necessarily mean sixth density beings are there as they choose to be in the sun. Is that correct? We are quo. It is correct that there would not be sixth density mating within a thermonuclear fusion in a power plant, nor would such be desirable, for some of the operations of entities living within fusion create in that fusion a perpetual motion machine, shall we say, in effect, of an ever-enlarging kind as seen within your relative mathematical picture. This would be extremely undesirable for one of your power plants, for it would blow up. Thusly, one would not wish to have that particular activity going on in a power plant. Is there a further query? No, my brother. We are those of quo. We feel very full of gratitude that you are once again have set for working with desire to seek and know the truth. We thank you for allowing us to speak our thoughts to you, knowing that you will subject them to your discriminative faculty. With you, we feel the beauty of this occasion. The blending of vibrations is beautiful to us. And with reluctance, as always, we take our leave of you through this instrument, encouraging each to seek and keep the light touch, to hope and to dream in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We are those of quo. Adonai, Adonai. So I honestly can't say if we have a further understanding or not from this amazingly provocative channeling. The reason it's so provocative is that you have beings living on the sun. Just think about that for a bit. You have beings that are advanced enough, they move to the sun. So the original civilization called Ra from Venus, according to this, have moved to the sun. So that also means whenever they were channeling Ra, they were channeling entities living on the sun. We know from The Secret of Light by Walter Russell that all things are made up of the photon. This photon is created by the sun and makes up all the matter all around us, including the chair that you're sitting in. It's a fascinating concept. This photon of light is important, and it appears is created, or some aspect of it is created, by sixth density beings essentially having sex. The way they have sex is through some sort of fusion, and they explain it creates a ever-going machine that keeps on going. I didn't quite understand that last part. In fact, I don't quite understand most of this. The idea is that there are different kinds of light that come to the earth, and some are expressly sent by sixth density entities in order to heal us and answer prayers. The light, as they indicate, is the Creator, and this light is obviously an important part of our awakening process and understanding our movement and transition into third, fourth, fifth, sixth density. And understanding this light is obviously a key element in understanding the world and universe around us. But it's interesting to think that living entities on the sun are creating these light rays, which they call radiation. So, as I've always been fascinated by, when you go out and sit in the sun, you're interacting with a living being. This living being is, as far as you and I are concerned, our God, an offspring of the greater God, but this particular logos, or the sun, has been given free will to create this solar system in whatever manner it wants. So what we see with the planets and our civilization and everything is unique to this sun. Now, obviously, the sun is a part of the greater logos and is an offspring of it. But it's interesting to think that in other solar systems, the sun there has its own free will, and it creates civilizations and densities all on its own. So you then understand that each solar system is sort of a wonderful experiment, a laboratory, each using intelligent infinity in its own way in designing a system of reality with several densities for living beings within it to move through to understand the Creator. So sometimes you might laugh when you see people on Facebook and they see a light ray on the picture and they see the light right there. Light beings are here for me. And you might laugh and think that that's ridiculous, but really it's not. The emphasis here is there is a place at 0 point. The sun is interacting both time-space and space-time. And there is a place where time is essentially still at this 0 point place where the 6 density beings interact, evolve, and come together and create. All of creation in this solar system ends up being sexual. It's how we're created. The sexual energy is a very important part of third density, and we've created sins and guilt out of it, but it obviously is a part of our own spiritual experience and a natural part of our planet. Without it, we have no daughters and sons and offspring. It is a critical part. And if you go back and look at the Law of One material, they indicate that Venus ended up moving into the 4th density. It's new Venus at that time. It was a sexual event of some sort. And I asked Jim McCarty about that, and he didn't know exactly the full answer. But the idea there was sexual exchanges of energy, primarily in partnerships, that allowed for a greater awakening. And this grand awakening caused that planet to shift into 4th density. This may be a little difficult on our planet because the social system has made sexuality to be such a shadowy sort of thing where people can't talk about it, and it's a sin, and people have no way of discussing it or understanding it, and it's all very quiet and secretive. There, it was a part of their religion. It was a part of their awakening. It was a natural part of their planet. At least that's what's implied. And it appears that it does this in each of the densities, and it becomes more and more important because it's an expression of love. And more love that it's expressed creates offspring. And in the highest density, the 6th density, right before 7th density, the offspring of this event that occurs is a fusion that creates a special light that helps to heal the planet. I still don't totally understand it, but it was a portion of the Law of One that I was fascinated by. I looked it up, and it was interesting that Quo addressed this. And that's the great thing about the Quo resource. Go and listen to the Law of One or read it, all 5 books of it. Teaching the Law of One is a good place to start. And you're going to come up with questions that don't make sense. Quo is a great resource to go and answer some of these questions, because the language used by Ra was a lot more sophisticated and complex. So what is your opinion? Can you imagine what it's like in these higher level light densities? What is happening? What's the loving interplay between these entities? The fusion, the explosions that are happening on the sun. Can you imagine that these explosions of solar flares reaching out, touching the earth, are expressions of love from higher density beings? Angels making love, creating explosions of light. That's what it is. That's what it essentially is. So every time you feel the light's rays touch your skin, hey, you never know what exactly is happening. But the interesting aspect also that's mentioned here is that there are other beings like elementals that are also intelligent, interacting within our reality. I believe that when we move into fourth density, we become aware of these elementals. The elements of fire and air and wind and water have their own sort of species that carry intelligence that perhaps we can communicate with. Everything around us is alive and is the creator. Don't forget that. At least remind yourself on a regular basis that everything is the creator. Every single bit of oxygen, every single drop of water that we drink, every single plant and bug and animal is the creator. And a really powerful awakening is to walk through a single day seeing the creator in everything, in every flower, in every insect, in every animal, and understanding it is all the creator. This acknowledgement, this connection, this understanding, it provokes something within you. There's a divine connection that starts to occur because you are the creator. And once you're aware that everything around you is you, then you have a way of playing with this reality. You have a greater influence over it, greater understanding. And that's what's happening in these higher densities. They have become all the light, and they're creating their own light and the sun itself. Maybe it's not true. Maybe all of the channelings from the Law of One is not true, but it sure is so much fun to talk about. So please let me know what you think about this particular aspect of the Law of One. I'd love to get your opinions. Have you met a light being? How do you visualize light beings having sex on the sun? I would love to know what your opinion of this is. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.